from business, from education and local authorities, you are all vital to the future success of our region. So I'm going to be introducing the speakers and thanking them through the morning. And the first is Brian Johnson, who is chair of Solent Freeport, whose day job is at BAE Systems Maritime and works in Portsmouth Naval Base. Brian.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. What a great turnout. We're really excited that seems excitement in the region at the Freeport. I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes about why the Freeport's important for this region, and then Alistair, who's our host today, so thank you, Alistair, great terminal, is going to come up and talk specifically about the implications for business on some of the Freeport incentives. So I want to quickly do an overview in 3 parts, which is really why we did it and how we did it, what our offering is, and why what the Solent's put together in terms of the Freeports in England is, I think, unique and going to be the one that really flies as we go forward. And then finally, what the next steps are. So going back about 2.5 years, as you all know, this government has been talking a lot about economic stimuli and using the phrase of levelling up. And if you live in the south, levelling up's always felt a bit north-south, you know, like it kind of is a code for not us. And that may or may not be true, and I'm not taking sides on politics. There's plenty of politicians here today, so you can ask them that view on it later. But what was very clear is that the Freeports were a huge economic stimulus for a region if you got it. And if you looked back at the 5 years, if it is 5 years of this administration, you will see that it was one of their major interventions. And so we got together around the LEP and around the local authorities in the region and felt if there's going to be Freeports, we really cannot allow there not to be one here. We all know that we are the gateway region. We have been. You know, we are so the centre of the maritime world that we hardly need to say it. I think all of us here understand that. So it was pretty obvious that we needed to do a bid, but it was equally pretty obvious that the legislation that had been set up about Freeports wasn't entirely suited to our region. It was a bit more suited to Teesside, where you had a large chunk of land that needed redevelopment. There was a metro mayor who owned it. It was all quite straightforward, because the government wanted this to be an intervention at scale. Because people have talked about Freeports and the tax sites within Freeports, and I'll come back to that in a minute, just being a bit like enterprise zones. But enterprise zones were quite small. This was going to be an intervention at scale, so they were looking for 600 hectares. And you had to have that 600 hectares in no more than 3 sites. And all of us who live and work here know that that is quite a hard ask in our region to find that much land. So we all convened across the local councils, the local business organisations, and it was agreed that the LEP would front the bid for the region. And we have had such a positive input. We've had all the councils engaged, and to get our bid in, you know, we've had to have agreement from many of the landowners, and Alistair will talk a bit more about that later, who are the private sector landowners, but we also needed Southampton Council, we're here today, Hampshire Council, the New Forest Council, Eastleigh Council, Havant Council, and we need all of those to agree how this works together. And so all of those people have signed quite complex binding agreements to do a partnership together. And that has actually allowed us to put together a Freeport bid which was selected and has now gone forward, and we've submitted the full business case to government. So what we've created is something across a number of tax sites that's a regional offering. So we've got all 3 ports involved, and part of the Freeport is making the ports more efficient, and as I said, Alistair's the expert on that. But there's the tax site side of it, and we have pulled together 3 sites, which is a number of facilities on the water side, an area around the airport, and an area north of Portsmouth called Dunsbury Farm. And between that, we've got enough land to put this together. And the reason I say that I think what we've put together in those Freeports is going to perhaps be the most successful UK intervention is that we have some fantastic diversity, both in the nature of the sites, in terms of what they offer. You know, some are by airports and have rail links, some have brilliant maritime links. The site in Portsmouth is absolutely ready to go, so we can do something quickly. So we have got a range of tax sites in the region that's not just one offering. So if you're looking to move into this region, we've got something that fits, and we've got something that's going to develop. So we've got things that can be developed quickly, things that'll probably take the 0 to 5 year horizon, probably some things that'll take the 5 to 10 year horizon. So what that really means is that on top of the ports working more efficiently, and that's the original thing that people think of free ports, the tax sites, they offer really good fiscal incentives to operate there, and Alistair's got some slides that will go through that. Sorry, I'm looking at a slide at the back rather than the one here. I'll talk. It doesn't seem to move. It's gone up now. Thank you. Yes, we've got the tax sites across the region, and in those tax sites, new jobs created will have really good incentives. So we're hoping that we can attract many more businesses into the region. You'll have seen our predictions, which are in the tens of thousands of jobs, and crucially, not all of them within the Solent region. Probably every job we create here, there will be a similar job created in the rest of our region, and indeed in the UK, because that's the benefit of us being a gateway region. And it was one of the strengths in our bid that it doesn't just benefit the Solent, it benefits the UK. But what is crucial for the region is what it does for us. So the increased business rates that are generated on those tax sites will be retained in the region and will be spent for the economic progress in the region. And we have put some complex agreements in place, and I go back to many of the councils I talked about earlier who've agreed to pool rates, which I look over at Councillor Heron there, who has quite a few of the sites in his. It's a big gulp when you agree to pool rates across an area, but we've set up something which will allow us to spend these rates within the area for the next 25 years. And our estimates are that could be in the order of £500 million over 25 years. Now, we are at the beginning of this journey, and those rates have yet to come. But when we get the Freeport signed off, and I'll go on to next steps in a minute, we get a little bit of seed funding from the government to kickstart things. And also, there is the potential to borrow against future rates. And the way the finances have been set up, and Portsmouth have been very good standing up as our accountable body, means that we should be able to front load things in a sensible and reasonable manner to really get the Freeport initiative going and get the economy going. So we believe what we've done for the region is going to benefit all of us, because maybe you're going to create jobs in those specific tax sites, which would be great. Maybe you're going to be a supplier to those people. Maybe you're going to work in an area that benefits from that infrastructure. And I do want to make a couple of comments about infrastructure, because immediately people jump to the conclusion I mean bridges and roads. We are obviously talking about something that will be sustainable and fits what we all have the ambition for this region, that is appropriate for our region. You know, I mean, it's great for us to talk about jobs in the forest, which is what we'll do on the waterside tax site, but the New Forest and the Solent region, as we all know, is an incredibly sensitive and incredibly asset-rich region for us, and you know, our local green economy is fantastic. So everything we do will fit with that. And we're very proud that the New Forest Park authorities come with us as a partner in this, not because we want them there for greenwashing, but because we need their skills to make sure we do this correctly. And they hold us to task, and Alison's here somewhere, I can't see her in the room, but she will no doubt be leading a seminar later, and we'll do that. But I absolutely commit to you from the board that we are going to do this in a way that is appropriate for each of those regions, because we're conscious that we're dealing with a fantastic region that we all live and work in. So that's what's in it for the region. And I still can't get this to advance, Maz, but oh, there we go. It's done there. So that's showing the tax sites and the customs sites around our region. We have also got an outer boundary that we can spend these rates in, which is very broadly the Solent LEP area. It's a more complex thing, so we'll come back to that in a bit about how those rates can be pooled. So I said I'd talk about what happens next. The what happens next, as I said, we've put the bid in. We've been through various outline business cases and full business cases, and we believe what we've done has signed up to that. We have got our governance right, so me being appointed as chair was one of the key steps the government wanted, because obviously as this board's going to manage quite large amounts of public money, it needs to be set up correctly. And indeed, the public sector partners that we're working with on this would not have signed up to something if it hadn't been set up correctly. And when you look at some of the other English free ports, they've sort of moved forward in some areas and not others. So we think we've got the three key parts of what needs to be done ready to move forward. We've got our tax sites authorised, we have customs sites authorised, we have the right governance in place, and we've put in our final business case. And we're expecting comments back on that from the government in the next couple of weeks. There will no doubt be some issues we've got to update. And then we are hoping that we will go live on the Freeport, and going live, the most crucial thing is we get the 25 million seed corn money, and that has to be spent quickly. So working with our colleagues in the LEP, and Stu's here and can talk about it later, we have already got a pipeline of things to use to spend that money on, because we've learnt in our experience from the LEP that the better pipeline you have and the better you are at spending money, the more likely you are to attract government funding. So we're ready to go on that. So you should see us actually signing the deal that we're an absolutely operational Freeport just towards the end of the summer. But I do want to stress that we have already had our tax sites approved. So in terms of will there be a Freeport or not, there is no doubt there will be a Freeport. And that's really been true for the last 6 months. But it's just that final point to get the final business case approved. So I think, going back to the start, in summary, why we've done this and why it's important for the area is it's easy to get hung up about the phrase Freeport. And when I do presentations, lots of people ask me, well, we had Freeports before. Another question is, well, there's a Freeport in Luxembourg, and that doesn't seem to work very well. It's a catch-all phrase by the government. The phrase Freeport in this context is a really big chunk of economic stimulus incentive, and they've packaged it in the word Freeport. But if you actually read the legislation around the customs and tax sites, that's what it's all about. So we have taken the opportunity to move forward with it, and it could equally be called an enhanced skills and employment area as a Freeport. So it's important not to get too hung up in comparing, well, we had a Freeport here before up to 2010 and that didn't seem to work, or there's other Freeport models in the world, I'm not sure I agree. Because what we're doing in the English legislation is different to that, and what we're doing in the Solent is different to that again. So the deal we've put together, what we feel is right for our area and reassures that green capital we've got in our area going forward. So that's why we did it. We've set it up. To rephrase, this is right for our region because of the jobs it's going to create, because of the skills it's going to create. And I could talk on any of these things at length, but clearly there's a skills package that goes with that, and that spending's going to be done, because not all new jobs, I dare say, will go to locals, but what we want is for many of these jobs to go to locals, and therefore we need to improve skills in the region. So we're working with all of the public sector and private sector partners to make sure that in parallel to investments, we increase the skills offering in the region so that these jobs go to people who want to live and work in our region, to bring it up. So that's what we've got. And then just to summarise back to the future, we're in all intents and purposes running now, because we have our tax sites approved, and our private sector partners, who I think are all represented here today, are already marketing what they have available. And the Navigator Quarter has just come up on the screen. That's the one north of the airport. And there's the water side, and we've got representatives here, and Dunsbury Farm. They're all up and running. And then a bit later in the year, we will get the approval from the full business case, and we'll get the seed corn money, and we will be up and running and in a position to start hopefully borrowing against some of the future rate predictions to really accelerate the delivery, to make sure that the infrastructure in all senses, whether it's roads and railways, skills, green interventions, go in parallel with those new jobs being created. So that, in summary, is why we've done this, what we've done for the region, and where we're going next. And I think if I press something at that point, we should run a video.
At the heart of the South Coast lies the nation's global gateway, where the story of our trading heritage meets our trading future. With exceptional connectivity by road, rail, air, and direct access to over 70 ports globally, this is the place where the next generation stands ready to catalyze a revolution in maritime, autonomy, and green growth. And where our universities and world-class research centers collaborate with business to commercialize innovation, all in an outstanding natural environment, where opportunity abounds, tourism flourishes, and trade flows. And where the creation of 3 tax sites covering 430 hectares of prime development land and offering a range of financial incentives to drive business growth is reinforcing a confidence based upon significant investor interest in a region where Britain has always led the world. This is the ideal location to build back better and greener, where innovation and creativity is fostered, and where businesses can take full advantage of the opportunities presented, here at the nation's gateway to the world. Solent Freeport. Jobs, trade, investment.